Thanks for that. And hello and welcome to everyone. So you'll see I'm in a bit different environment. So I'm actually up at Tushita Meditation Center in Dharamsala. And well, I don't know, out this window is Lameshe's stupa. So I came up here to receive some teachings from His Holiness Dalai Lama, which got finished a few days ago. And unfortunately, I have to return to the real world tomorrow. So I'm taking, my introduction to the real world is taking an overnight bus to Delhi. So anyway, but I'm glad we could get together, even though I'm on the road. I'll apologize in advance for potential technical difficulties, but it seems like the internet is working pretty well thus far. Okay, so let's jump right into it then. So always at the beginning of the session, we adjust our motivation. And today, well, let's please adjust our motivation in this way, thinking that the very purpose of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. And then in order that I may be able to benefit sentient beings in the best way, the most effective way, I myself must first fully develop all of my qualities. And that full development of qualities is just what we mean, just what we refer to when we say complete enlightenment. And therefore, in order to achieve enlightenment, I need to learn about all the various practices that are the causes for attaining enlightenment. And I need to then put them into practice. And so in order to do that, I'm going to engage in this Dharma lecture here today. Okay. Great. Then, okay, start with the taking refuge in generating bodhicitta, this formulation. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Excuse me. Oops. Okay. All right. Okay. So here we are, session 4 of module 9 of Discovering Buddhism, Samsara Nirvana. And here, I know I've done this stanza before, but it's, you know, what do they say? An oldie but goodie, right? You guys know, right? So you'll hear this again and again. And yeah, just to further adjust our motivation now that we're talking about, you know, the faults of samsara, trying to generate this mind of wishing to achieve liberation from it. And then Shantideva reminds us, relying on the boat of a human body, free yourself from the great river of suffering, because this boat is the goal to attain again. Do not sleep now, fool. So, yeah, as we went over in the teachings on the precious human rebirth, then, you know, the attainment of even liberation from samsara, much less talking about full enlightenment, it requires not just any kind of life to do that, but it requires particularly this precious human rebirth. Because with this precious human rebirth, we have, you know, the intelligence afforded to us by being born a human, and the other aspect of, you know, being able to engage in language, right? Because it is through language that we are able to, you know, receive teachings, right? And then not only just having a human body with intelligence, but also the other aspects of the precious human rebirth pertaining to having access to Dharma. So as you know, being born in a time when the Buddha has arrived, has taught, the teachings still exist, people have realizations and so forth. So all of these are, very, very rare and therefore difficult to attain again. But now that we have attained it, well, we can accomplish any one of the three goals found in the Lam Rim. Yes, we can achieve a good rebirth in the next life. But here, Shandideva, in the context of the so-called middle scope, the path of the intermediate capable being, then we understand that even the attainment of a good rebirth in our next life is insufficient. So what do we have to do? We have to free ourselves from the great river of suffering. So that is samsara, and it's likened to a river, probably a raging river, right? Where we're swept away. Okay, that's one way to think about the river. The other thing is, rivers are kind of unbroken, right? So from their source to their origin until they reach the sea, they continue. So similarly, our experience of samsaric suffering is beginningless. And if we don't do the work that we need to do, realizing emptiness, abandoning the afflictions, then our future experience of suffering is also going to be endless. So now that we have all of the outer and inner conditions to liberate ourselves from samsara, then we have to make the utmost effort. Not waste time. Here, Shandida is saying, don't even sleep. So, yeah, maybe this isn't to be taken literally, but more generally in the sense of, wasting time, engaging in worldly activities. Because, as you know, any activity can become dharma through one's motivation. So even sleeping, if one does it with a mind, that I need to continue to practice dharma for the benefit of all sentient beings. Therefore, I need to, stay healthy. I need to rest, so I have continued energy. Then, with that attitude, if one sleeps, then it can become Mahayana dharma. Okay, is that how you sleep every night? I hope so. Okay, so that's that. And so now, okay, remember in the previous sessions, we were talking about the differences in the outlines between liberation palm your hand and Lam Chenmo. And my opinion was that the outlines of Lam Chenmo are a bit more extensive and therefore more helpful. So where we are now, right? So we're training the mind in the stages shared with persons of medium capacity. And then, there's the mental training. We identify the mind intent on liberation. And then we were talking now about the method for developing the mind intent on liberation. Okay. And just to review, right? Different translators say, kind of have different words for what they're translating, right? So mind intent on liberation is what we sometimes see as renunciation, right? Mind intent on liberation. Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So then the method for developing the mind intent on liberation, there are two ways. One is, to reflect on suffering and its origin. And then later, perhaps in the next session, we're going to talk about the 12 links of interdependent origination. So both these ways are, when we talk about, remember, when we talk about liberation, right, then we're talking about liberation from what? Liberation from samsara. So since the mind intent on liberation or the mind of renunciation just is this wish to be free from samsara, then we have to understand what samsara is, right? And so there's two ways to do that. They kind of describe the mechanism, the mechanisms of samsara, the kind of nuts and bolts, how samsara operates. And that are two methods, the method of, within the Four Noble Truths, the reflection on suffering and its origin, And then in a more sort of detailed way, the 12 links of interdependent origination goes into that process of how beings take birth within samsara, in more detail. Okay, so last time, or maybe the past few times, we were talking about the truth of suffering, the faults of cyclic existence, and now we're going to reflect on the process of cyclic existence in terms of true origin. Okay, the second noble truth. Okay, all right. So now, thank you. So now, the reflection on the process of cyclic existence in terms of its origin. Okay, then first we have how the afflictions arise, and then we're going to talk about identifying the afflictions, the order in which the afflictions arise, the causes of the afflictions, and the faults of the afflictions. So first, identifying the afflictions. So Arya Asanga, he defines this affliction as defined as a phenomena that, when it arises, is disturbing in character, and that, through arising, disturbs the mind stream. Okay, so sometimes you see this word. So in Tibetan, it's nyomong, right? In poorly pronounced Sanskrit, it's klesha, right? And sometimes you'll see it, rather than being translated as affliction, you'll see it translated as a disturbing emotion, destructive emotion, and so forth, right? But again, what we're really talking about is, a phenomenon that, when it arises, is disturbing in character, and then through arising, disturbs the mind stream. Okay. So all of these various afflictions, they say that there's actually 84,000 afflictions. But all of them, when they arise, then they have a disturb the mind. Okay. So you'll see different lists of the afflictions, but actually in the module syllabus, they talk about 6 afflictions, the 6 root afflictions, but in Lamrim Chenmo talks about 10 afflictions. Okay. So when we talk about 10 afflictions, they are attachment, hostility, pride, ignorance, doubt, the reifying view of the perishing aggregates, an extremist view, a belief in supremacy of wrong views, a belief in the supremacy of ethics and religious discipline, and wrong views. Okay. Now, when it is just 6 afflictions, okay, the first 5 are the same. Okay. So one way of categorizing this is when there's 10, there's 5 views and 5 non-views. Okay. Tawa nga bang ta min nga. Okay. Nga is 5. Okay. So you'll see 6 through 10, view, extremist view, belief in terms of wrong view, right? So these are all views, right? The 6 through 10 are views, and the first 5 are not views. Okay. All right. Now, when we make it from 10 to 6, 6, 7, 8, 9 are just kind of, I don't want to say, left out. Okay. And the main one becomes this wrong view, right? Okay. So I thought what we could do, is actually go through the relevant section in Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand about these various afflictions, right? I've tended not to give a kind of word-by-word commentary so much, but these are important, so let's do it. Okay. Oops. Okay. Right. Okay. So here, right, as I just was mentioning, then here the 6 root delusions right? Attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, wrong views, and doubt. Okay, so it's a little bit different order, but basically instead of having all those other views, view of the perishing aggregate, belief in ethics as being supreme and so forth, we just have wrong views. So this presentation is from the Treasury of Metaphysics, otherwise known as Abhidharma Kosha, right? Okay, so now let's go into these views. 1 second. Okay, so first, attachment. Okay, so here Prabhupada Rinpoche says when we see an attractive jewel, body, food, drink, or whatever, we develop thoughts such as not wanting to be separated from it. Other delusions are like the dust on a piece of cloth, easy to remove, but attachment, which means clinging or being fixated with something, is like oil that has soaked into a piece of cloth, difficult to remove because it spreads out farther and farther. When, for example, one wants to look at an object, touch it, and so forth, craving and clinging to these objects of one attachment penetrates the mind. These then spread and are difficult to remove. The lasso of craving and attachment confines you to samsara's prison. So that's a quotation. I'm not sure where it's from. In other words, because attachment is the root that prevents us from being sufficiently moved to and out samsara, it is the main thing binding us from to samsara. Okay. So then a question comes up, right? Not wanting to be separated from it. Okay. We see an attractive, jewel, body, whatever. Okay. So then, I don't know. What do you guys think? Can we have attachment to, say, our guru, right? To the Buddha. Remember, I think I mentioned the story about how Shariputra and Moggallana, before the Buddha passed away, they knew about it, found it so unbearable that they decided to pass away before the Buddha because they couldn't bear the sight of watching the Buddha pass away, right? Okay. So what do you think? Or, right, we're doing all the time these, extensive prayers for the long lives of spiritual friends. We, in the 7 limb prayer, we are always pleading, beseeching them not to pass away into Nirvana, right? So, I mean, of course, we don't want to be separated from our gurus. We don't want to be separated from, the Dharma. So is that attachment? Urs.
Yes. Isn't there one condition that there is some exaggeration involved? I mean, that you exaggerate the qualities of the object. And so in case of the guru or the Buddha, it's hard to exaggerate the qualities of the object. So in that case, it's not really attachment.
Yes. So, very good. I hope you all heard him. So, but it's interesting, right? So anyway, the answer was, attachment involves this exaggeration of the qualities of the object, right? And because the Buddha, our guru, so forth, yeah, actually, not only are we not exaggerating the qualities, but we're deprecating the qualities. We actually have no idea the full extent of the Buddha's omniscient qualities. It's mind blowing to us, So yeah, so that explanation is there. I've heard it, but have we seen it in a text somewhere that talks like that? Okay, so maybe maybe not. Now we can say, all right, when we now talk about its antidote, okay, this, okay, in my opinion, let's first go through this paragraph. Its antidote is meditation on ugly and so on. Here, ugliness meditation is as follows. You develop the attitude that the body, as a corpse, has a bloody aspect, an aspect of being scattered to feed the vultures, a swelling aspect, and an eventual future as a skeleton. When you are attached to someone, for example, consider how that person is just a sack full of 36 kinds of filthy substances. When you're attached to eating meat, think how the main ingredient is filthy and how it was prepared by taking a life and so on. Your attachment and craving will then diminish. Okay. So in my opinion, okay, kind of just when we read about the antidotes to the afflictions, we can kind of, it kind of implies a few things. One is, okay, now I will say, I have seen in other texts, not this exaggeration point per se, but I've seen that the object of attachment has to be zakche, so like contaminated, right? Contaminated. And yeah, like a samsaric object arisen from karma and afflictions. Okay, so that's one way out of it. Okay, but the other thing, when we just look here, right, it seems how, right, the attachment is working and how His Holiness has explained about anger, right? We exaggerate. Okay, so everything in samsara, they'll have good qualities and bad qualities, right? Let's say for the most part, right? Even like the worst, person, right? They say, yeah, everyone has performed at least some root of good deeds in the past, right? So and even like the worst kind of terrorists you can see, probably their mother still loves them, something like this, right? Okay, all right. So there is good qualities and bad qualities, but when we have an object of attachment, we see that person or that object, whatever it is, as being 100% good, and there's that exaggeration of qualities. So here with the antidote, we remind ourselves of those drawbacks, of those faults. Okay, and here it's a little bit morbid, but one of the faults of objects within samsara are their impermanence, right? So even this person we find so attractive and all that, well, to then remember that they're going to die, and this body that we find so attractive and so forth, is eventually going to become food for the vultures. Mary Ellen?
I've heard the guru being compared to a lighthouse, because the teachings are what take you to, sorry, it's noisy in my background. The teachings are what take you to enlightenment. And so the guru is the lighthouse, and the guru points the way. And so fixating on the guru as something other than the beacon to tell you the way to go is an attachment that wouldn't be helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I had muted myself. Okay. Yeah, this is something to think about, because for sure, I don't mean to criticize anyone, but when you see how some people act, maybe it's a little bit unhealthy, right? but yeah, it's something to think about. Can we have over reliance on the guru? So I know, I think Lamia Shir, they once, like, jokingly said, okay, so in general, yes, the lighthouse, showing us the way. Okay. And there's so many things, foundational qualities is the, a perfect pure guru, correct devotion to him is the root of the path. Okay, yeah, all of that is there. And especially when you get into Vajrayana teachings, then, the practice of guru yoga is the essential practice, right? It's the core of the practice, which means seeing your guru as completely pure, no doubt, the Buddha, like even more important than the Buddha, right? Right? Oh, we haven't gone through that in great detail, but just we'll get to that later. Yes, there's many stories like that in the text. Okay, then, so we're supposed to rely on the guru. But then once, I think, then he was talking about, like, people who then, they go too far. And I don't remember the whole thing, but he said, pretty soon, right, you kind of lose your own internal wisdom. And then you're too reliant on the guru that you'll even ask the guru, oh, should I go to the toilet? Right? Yeah. So it kind of happens like that sometimes, right? So, yeah, it's like we outsource our own decision-making process, right? Right? It's like, oh, there's some kind of dilemma I'm facing. I don't know what to do. Oh, well, let me just ask the guru what I should do, right? Rather than, use your internal wisdom and figure it out for yourself. Now, big things, and especially, things related to, your path, right? Like, for example, whether you should, become ordained or not, or, yeah, who you're, like, what preliminary practices to do, who your kind of main deity, your yidam, all these things, then yeah, it's good. They're very, directly related to, one's spiritual development. But, should I go to the toilet? You can do that or not. Just don't bother your guru with that kind of stuff, right? Anyway, it's something to think about. But I wonder, even if we do that, is that attachment? Is that attachment in this, how this is being talked about? How this is being talked about here, it's more like, these physical objects, oh, we want so much. Oh, we're like, it's almost like an addiction, right? Anyway, there's a lot to think about. Oh, Mary Ellen.
Sorry, I was just thinking that after Lama Yeshe died, there were so many monastics who disrobed because their guru was gone. And that's a mistaken. That seems like attachment. That seems like attachment.
Yeah. I don't know what you would call that, but for sure, when one takes the vows, one takes it for life. And then in particular, one thinks that, one, if one has the mind, oh, I'll only, keep the vows when it's easy to do so, but then when it's difficult, I won't keep them. Actually, it says in the text, if you go to the ordination ceremony like that, the vows don't even arise. Right? You might be there, you might repeat all the words, but if you have that mind, oh yeah, I'll keep them when it's easy, but when it's hard, I won't keep them. So I heard that story too, and again, I don't want to, criticize anyone. I don't know. Of course, it's probably a lot more complicated than it is, right? Than it appears. But yeah, if it were the case that was the direct cause, then yeah, that would be a kind of mistake. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Okay. Next one. I mean, that's the thing, right? You take the vows, and these are individual liberation vows, right? The monks' vows, individual liberation vows. So then, it's to give yourself the best sort of opportunity to become liberated. Okay. Then your guru dies. Are you closer to liberation, or are you further away? So probably when that happens, you need to rely on, the vows. You need to rely on these conditions even more than before. Mm. Mm. Okay. So next, anger. Anger is the highly disturbed aspect of the mind that arises when we see something unpleasant, enemies, and so forth. The objects of anger could be sentient beings or inanimate objects. When we focus the mind on them, the mind is disturbed and tormented. The wish to do the object utter harm is anger. Anger does great damage. It does things like destroying your root merits as if they've been burned in the fire. Anger is responsible for taking lives, stabbing or beating others, and so forth. And nowadays, people apply sweet-sounding names. Anger. Our Lama is cross, they say. Okay. These people might not reckon that anger is damaging, but it is said there's no sin like hostility, there is no austerity like patience. That's from Bodhisattva Charipatara. Or anger is the weapon to murder your higher rebirths. In other words, of all the delusions, anger has the greatest strength to destroy our root virtues and is the main thing that throws you into the lower realms. Therefore, it does great damage. Okay, so yeah, it's talks about this another time, but in the context of karma, right? Then we can purify previously accumulated negative karma through the application of the 4-point powers, right? And conversely, when we have previously accumulated merit, roots of virtue, that also can be destroyed. And so here, I'm saying there's different ways in which root virtues can be destroyed, and these ways depend on the object. Okay. So just briefly, what are these different ways? So anger, yeah, that's one. And then holding wrong views. We'll get to wrong view later, but it's to deny the existence of liberation, past and future lives, karma, cause and effect, so forth, right? Those also can destroy. And then another one, which, yeah, I think, yeah. So, in the 4-point powers, we have the opponent power of regret, right? So when we regret negative actions that we've done, then that helps to purify. But if we regret positive actions, then that destroys or weakens, damages the previously accumulated merit, right? So the example I gave is, if some months ago, right, let's say last year, when before the stock market and the crypto market and all these things crashed, right? Let's say you gave away some money to charity, right? Then this year, your portfolio totally went down, right? And then if you think, oh man, I shouldn't have given away, so much money last year, then that weakens the merit. Okay. So, one thing to keep in mind is, you see, if you hadn't given it away, right, and just kept it invested, it would have, dropped in value so much anyway. So that's the thing with our material possessions. The best thing we can do is give them away, right? With good intention, good motivation, because then we get merit, which, as we know, is only increasing day by day. Unlike the various investments that we have. Okay. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so you must apply the antidotes to anger, being patient, etc. I'll talk about anger further in the section on the 6 perfections below. So 6 perfections, then the perfection of patience, then it is talked about in more detail about the antidotes to anger. Okay. then there's this statement. It is permissible, however, to beat your pupils if you do it solely with their benefit in mind and not out of anger. So, yeah. Difficult. We'll talk about this later in the section on, Guru devotion, but, so many times when we see these stories of the, previous masters, Marpa, making Milarepa go through so many austerities, Naropa, all these stories from the past. At one point, just to give an example, Tilopa said to Naropa, "Oh, if there was a really devoted disciple, they would jump off this cliff." And Naropa did it, So I don't know if we can take those literally, but it seems so. Anyway, I once heard Rinpoche say that nowadays this level of shall we say skillful means to benefit the disciples, actually it's such degenerate times that teachers shouldn't engage like this, right? So yeah. Okay. So now here's another doubt. Okay, this is kind of the converse of what we were talking about with attachment. Okay, so we have objects of anger could be sentient beings or inanimate objects. Okay, and then the wish to do the object utter harm is anger. Okay, now we see this. This is Lamrim Shema. There's a very nice quotation, right? From Bodhisattva Charvatara. Enemies such as hatred and craving have neither feet nor hands, are neither brave nor intelligent. How then have they enslaved me? While they dwell within my mind, they are pleased to do me harm. They are not to be endured without anger. Tolerance of them is ridiculous. Okay? So then talking about, the afflictions being our enemy. And so, we should be angry towards the afflictions. And tolerance is another word for patience. So what do you think? And here earlier, when Lama Tsongkhapa talks about anger, here he says hostility. So it means observing origins of suffering. Okay. Now, when we're talking about origin of suffering, the second noble truth, is that what we're talking about here? So origins of suffering, karma, and afflictions, the afflictions, right? We observe the afflictions, and then we want to harm these objects. Many times it talks about the wisdom realizing emptiness as that which harms the ignorant mind grasping to true existence. Anyway, it's the converse of the thought I brought up before. What do you think? Okay, I kind of gave you a clue. In my opinion, this origins of suffering, it's not talking about origin of suffering like karma and afflictions, but here, the list, living beings, pain, weapons, thorns, so forth, right? So it's kind of, these are causes of suffering in the sense that, living beings harm us, pain, weapon, these things. But yeah, to develop the mind, Shanideva is being a little bit poetic here, right? Right? Viewing the real enemy as our afflictions, right? And so wishing to harm the afflictions means wishing to, abandon them. And that mind is a virtuous mind. Whereas anger, typically, it is said that anger is always a non-virtuous mind. Okay, anyway, let's go back to liberation of the palm of your hand. All right, pride. Pride is an inflated opinion of yourself and can manifest in relation to some good or bad object, your power, wealth, good qualities, family, wisdom, your pure ethics, even your pleasant voice or physical prowess. When you look down from a high mountain, everyone below seems to have shrunken in size. When you hold yourself to be superior to others, you have an inflated opinion of yourself. You take on a superior aspect. It requires only a trivial object to serve as a cause for developing your pride. As the Kadampas of old said, the snow on the mountaintops melts in springtime. See if it happens to the snow in the ravines below. So what does that mean? Okay, they said that the mountaintop of pride won't get flooded with the water of good qualities. In other words, it is difficult to develop any good qualities at all when one has pride. Also, a guru may teach Dharma to a person who has pride, but it will do no good. Right. So this little, statement here from the Kadampas. So the point is, in this context, you want the snow to melt because it's talking about the water of good qualities. So the snow on the mountaintops, it's too high, doesn't melt in springtime, but the snow at lower altitudes does. So similarly, if we have this inflated view of ourselves, then very difficult to develop any more good qualities. So I remember some years ago, someone came to the Bangalore Center and they said to me that they have the same level of realization as Shakyamuni Buddha. Yeah. So I said, okay, I have nothing to teach you then, right? Right, if you have the same level of realization as Shakyamuni Buddha, actually, you don't need to do any more training. They call that, right, the path of no more learning, right? You've totally transcended everything. Now, maybe, some Buddhas would come to a teaching from a very ordinary being like myself, because to benefit me in some way, right? Huh? Right? I think so. They show various aspects. They could come to a teaching, maybe ask some questions, right? That then benefit me as a teacher, maybe say something I hadn't thought of before, right? We don't know who is a Buddha and who is not. But that's very different from someone saying, "Oh, I'm already enlightened." If they really think that, then yeah, I mean, what more is there to learn, right? Okay, so the antidote to pride is to think over some list you don't understand, especially the full classification of sense elements. Okay. Yeah, this is one of the kind of lists, categorizations found in Abhidharma. So basically, it's because pride is this inflated mind thinking higher of yourself. And then to then remember all the things you don't know, that you don't understand, then yeah, it serves as an antidote to that. Another good antidote to pride is to try to learn Tibetan or any other language, but Tibetan, yeah, especially. Okay. Occasionally, you should think over every individual internal and external thing that exists from the crown of your head down to your feet. You will not know very many of these, and it ought to kill your pride. Okay, yeah, that's what you see in the traditional text. But basically, in my opinion, you see, when we just consider how we're still in samsara, right? How we're under the control of karma and afflictions, then, how really proud can you be, right? So that's what I think. Because, we can do this, right? Like, the type of pride that is kind of most dangerous for us as practitioners is, in a Dharma context, to think that we have a high level of realization, right? But these full classification of sense elements, or not knowing elements of world history or whatever, not even not knowing many languages, it's like, okay, but if you think you're some great practitioner, you've already realized emptiness, that you're already a bodhisattva, all these things, I think that's the bigger obstacle. Okay, ignorance. All right. So here's some Tibetan etymology. So generally, ignorance, ma rikpa in Tibetan, is opposite of the word to know, rikpa, with a negative particle ma added. Understand? So ignorance, ma rikpa. Rikpa is to know. Ma is a negative particle, like not or un, right? Okay? Like the verbs to see and to not see, to know and not to know. So ignorance is not knowing, not seeing, not understanding, being unclear, and so forth. Like the pitch black when we see, when our eyes are shut tight, we're not seeing objects in total darkness. Ignorance is the blindness, not seeing the nature of mode of existence of something. The four truths, cause and effect, three jewels, and the like. Ignorance is the root of all delusions. Okay, so this is a little important point, this next paragraph. So there's one system that asserts that ignorance is the same as the view that equates the self with the perishable, that is, the aggregates and so on. And in that system, that view itself is ignorance. Okay, so you know, when we talk about, so Dharmakirti says this. Dharmakirti wrote the Pramanavartika. So we have the root of samsara being ignorance that equates the view of the self with the perishable. In other words, grasping to true existence. Okay, so that view itself is ignorance. When we talk later about the 12 links of interdependent origination, we have the first link, ignorance, right? And so, yeah, that is the root of samsara, grasping to true existence. Okay, so then another system, and this is the system of Asanga, and his half-brother Vasubandhu. So they assert that ignorance and this view of the perishing aggregates or self-grasping are separate. For example, the mistake of thinking a rope is a snake is like the view that equates the self perishable aggregates. Okay, so there's this analogy that comes up again and again that at dusk, you know, you go into your backyard, you see a coiled rope. Because of the darkness, it appears as a snake. You get very afraid, right? So similarly, to our ignorant mind, the self appears to be truly existent. Okay. So that cause, okay, the cause for this is because the striped rope is covered in darkness. There's a lack of clarity about the mode of existence of the rope. So ignorance is like this, lack of clarity of the mode of existence of the rope. Okay. Anyway, it's a little bit technical, but just know, right? So first system asserted by Chandrakirti and Dharmakirti, and the second by Asanga and his disciples. Point being, the ignorance that grasps onto true existence as the root of samsara. That's one way of holding it. The second way is, you know, just like darkness, right, falling is kind of a cause that sees, that makes us see the rope as being a snake. Then there is another kind of mind of confusion that then is asserted as the ignorance. In most texts, you'll later, you know, come across, you'll follow this, the first system, because Chandrakirti is, you know, the kind of main commentator on the Prasangika Madhyamika system, which is held to be the highest in terms of Buddhist philosophical tenets. Okay, so doubt. This is directed toward the four truths, the three jewels, cause and effect, and so on, and wonders whether they exist or not, whether they are true or not. Doubt in the three jewels is a condition to prevent us from developing realizations. As the first Dalai Lama Gendun Drip said, save me from doubt, that terrible ghost, that cruel one who flies in the sky of their blindness, who harms my yearning for conviction, who murders my liberation. When you doubt the law of cause and effect, it prevents you from gaining higher rebirth. Doubt about the four truths serves to block you from gaining liberation. Doubt then is most harmful. As such, it is soon to be one of the five non-views. Okay, so here it's important to note, right? Because we talked about another context, how we need to, you know, analyze and not just take things at face value. Okay, so some healthy skepticism that then you know, wants to inquire, wants to know more. That's not what we're talking about here. So sometimes you'll see in the text, not just doubt, but okay. So doubt is tetsom in Tibetan, and then nyomon is affliction, right? Chen, like sem chen, chen is possessing. So instead of tetsom, tetsom is doubt. You'll sometimes see it referred to as tetsom nyongmon chen, afflicted doubt. Okay. So here, afflicted doubt. Okay, so those of you who studied logic before, you know there's three kinds of doubt, right? There's a doubt that's tending away from the fact, right? So that would be, for example, okay, I wonder, do the three jewels exist or not? You know what? Probably not, right? Then the second one is more like a total agnostic view. Okay, do the three jewels exist or not? I can't say. You know, your guess is good as mine. Then doubt tending toward the fact is, you know, do the three jewels exist or not? Okay, not sure, but based on the you know, explanations I've read, and so forth, probably they exist. Okay, so there's still some element of doubt in there, but it's doubt tending toward the fact. So we can have, you know, the doubt that wants to inquire, wants to sort of learn more, wants to come to kind of establish the truth and validity. But even if one has a little bit of doubt, then try not to say or try not to think, you know, oh, probably not. Probably they don't exist. Okay. So yeah, here diluted views. So here there are 5. No, I wonder, do we want to go through these? It's a little bit difficult, but let's do it. In the syllabus, they said 6. Let's do the 10 because it's here in the reading. Okay. So the view that equates the self with the perishable. This is the diluted view that directed toward the collection of aggregates. Right. So remember, aggregates. This word you basically only see in Buddhist texts, which have the property of being perishable. Perishable means impermanent, right? Changing. Regarding them to be the self and what belongs to the self. That is I and mine. Okay. So yeah, in the illustration, when people through praise or insults help or harm you, the thought, why did they do this to me, presents itself most vividly to your mind. You grasp at this as if it existed in this way. This is the root of misdeeds. Okay. So this is what we were mentioning, the ignorant mind that grasps onto true existence. Okay. But this is in relation to, you know, I and mine. So even ants hold this view, equating self with the perishable. If you poke an ant on the nose with a blade of grass, it'll immediately think, terrified, something is happening to me, hunch up and play dead. Later, it'll turn around and run away. This view of equating the self with the perishable causes it to do this. Yeah, so basically, this is the root of samsara. And as opposed to other views that we're going to get into next, one doesn't need to have been trained in a philosophical tenet system in order to have these views. They arise naturally, right? Whereas other types of views, you have to kind of learn them from misleading teachers. So extreme views. Next, these views are directed toward anything grasped at by the above view of equating the self with the perishable. Extreme views take such things to be permanent, stable, independent, established as being true, and so on. Views such as regarding the continuity of the I as being discontinued at death are also extreme views. It is mainly non-Buddhists who hold these views. So that's what I was saying. You know, they then you know, learn kind of false tenet systems, and then they come to all these views. We may also wrongly regard things as being established as true or having nihilistic views, etc. Okay, view of holding the aggregates to be supreme. This is a diluted view deriving from any of the above mentioned wrong views. Those equating the self with the perishable, those holding things to be permanent or non-existent. Okay, Here, non-existent, right, means at the time of death, the self becoming non-existent. This delusion is directed towards the aggregates of the holder of these views and takes these aggregates to be supreme. So, a little bit confusing. What is this actually talking about? Let's see. Let's see what Lama Tsongkhapa has to say. Extremist view, belief in the supremacy of wrong views. Is an afflicted view that observes one of the three views, the view of perishing aggregates, extremist view, and a wrong view, along with the view holder's aggregates, on the basis of which such a view occurs and regards such a view as supreme. Yes, I like this better. So one could imagine, right? Okay, so some would say, right, in some tenet systems, right, this extremist view, the self as being permanent, right? So this is, like the view of Atman, right? The view of the Atman. And then, some tenet systems hold that then the discovery of this permanent and eternal Atman is the way to gain liberation, right? That is a kind of approximation of, well, at least how some of the Hindu views, how they're depicted in Buddhist texts, right? Right. So the self being permanent and eternal, the discovery of that permanent and eternal self as being the way to gain liberation. And as such, that view is the supreme. Okay. So holding an ethic or code of behavior to be supreme, right? This is the view, for example, taking the cultivation of the 5 fires. Okay, so what are the 5 fires? So apparently, ancient Hindu yogis, maybe some even do this today, they would sit in the middle, right, of 4 fires, right? In front on the 4 directions. And then the 5th fire is the sun above them. Okay. My understanding is they thought these 5 fires would burn away their negative karma. And then at the end of that practice, they would be liberated. Okay. Jumping over tridents. Okay, I don't know, but yeah, ethic of standing on one leg and so on are paths to liberation. It could be also be holding some code of behavior to be supreme, such as sitting on animal hide. Some people perceive by subtle clairvoyance that they're a dog in their previous life, and this blinds them. They want to receive a human body again in their next life. So mistaking this as being the cause means they see that they're a dog in their past life. They are now a human. So they think that this is the cause of being human, being a dog in your past life. Okay. Then they imitate many dog actions, bark and so forth. They take these to be supreme, and so they make their body and speech perform these evils. Okay. So people pursue these evil ethics because, for example, they hold that such things are the main cause for liberation. Okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, probably this just came to me. Probably why in the community syllabus they only did the 6 is, yeah, these ones you need to have engaged or then come into contact with a teacher that teaches such things. But hopefully, Yeah, we haven't. In India, however, you do meet people. I met someone who then like had their arm up like this for years and years. They thought that that was a way to liberation. Sorry, did I say I met someone? I met someone who met someone. It wasn't firsthand. It was secondhand. Yeah. Okay. So wrong views. These mainly comprise the view that the four truths, the three jewels, cause and effect, etc., do not exist. So two things should be considered here: exaggeration, where something non-existent is supposed to exist, and denial, where something existent is supposed not to exist, or when one holds the view that things do not exist at all. Some non-Buddhists claim that the world was created by Vishnu, who incarnated 10 times into the world. The Samkhyas divide all the nobles, means all existent phenomena, into 25 categories and hold that the general primary principle created the world. Others assert that the world was created by Ishvara, and so on. These people claim that something was created when it was not. So these are exaggerations. Wrong views, however, are denials. You get this? Okay. So in general, right, when we, those of you who've studied Logic before, then there's 7 types of mind, right? And the, like, kind of from worst to best, there's, wrong view, right? Wrong view, doubt, and so forth, right? So in general, a wrong view is anything that holds something, there's these two, right? Where you hold something that's non-existent to exist, or something that is existent not to exist, right? So the kind of famous, wrong view, right? The horns of a rabbit don't exist, but a mind that believes in the horns of the rabbit, that's a wrong view in general, right? Or, I don't know. So many. They don't have to be kind of like that, even in our day-to-day life. Like, I don't know, I came to this room and I thought I had my my cup here, and when I came, I realized the cup wasn't here. Okay, so the view, or the mind that thought the cup was here, was a wrong view. I came to discover that when I looked on the desk, saw there's no cup. Okay, all right. So those in general are wrong views, but here, it's a specific type of wrong view that is held as the affliction, holding that the four truths, which is inexistent, the three jewels, existent, cause and effect, existent, holding that those don't exist. Okay, so and you see, we're talking about afflictions, right? Now, that mind that thought my cup was here in the room, is that an affliction? Okay, even if it might not be in these, 6 root afflictions, isn't an affliction. Okay. Huh? No? Why not? Mary Ellen, I see you shaking your head. So by doing that, you volunteered.
I don't think it's an affliction, because it's not something that it's not anger, it's not attachment, it's not it's just a mistake.
Okay, so hold on. Now, when it's talking about these views, the non-Buddhists who claim the world was created by Vishnu, okay, that's also a wrong view. Okay, is that an affliction? In other words, let's put it this way. Okay, here in this, it's saying wrong views in the context of these root afflictions or denials. Okay, now we have the exaggeration where something non-existent is supposed to exist. So are there any exaggerations that are afflictions? We at least know one, right? The view holding on to true existence of the self, right? So something not supposed to exist, true existence, is being exaggerated. Okay, so that is in the Lodic division of 7 kinds of mind. That's a wrong view. Okay, but that's included in ignorance, so it's not this wrong view. Okay, now let's forget about that. How about other things? Believing the world was created by Vishnu or Ishvara. So Dharmakirti, he spends a lot of time in the 2nd chapter of Paramavartika denying those views, arguing why they're not true. Okay, something to think about. But in general, we do know that there are even some denials, right, that aren't wrong views here in this context, right? So these ones in this context has to deal with the 4 truths, 3 jewels, cause and effect. Okay, maybe the etc. What does that include? I don't know. Maybe, right? If you wanted to be, just expanding this. So 3 jewels, you have the Buddha jewel. Okay, so the 4 bodies of Buddha, right? The Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, right? So maybe like that. But what is so wrong? What's so wrong with these wrong views, right? So the point is, we are, I hope, interested in liberation. We're interested in enlightenment. So if you have the view, oh, there's no liberation doesn't exist, then your impetus to achieve liberation, I mean, you're not going to make effort, right? So that's the main kind of point here, right? Right. So those wrong views block your progress. Yeah. Being mistaken about where you left your cup does not. Yeah. But now about this. You remember the story of the I forget his name. That one older man in the Buddha's time, right? Who was abused by his family. And then he got sick and tired, and he then went to the monastery and spoke to Shariputra, wanted to ordain. Shariputra said, "Oh, I don't see any roots of virtue for you to ordain." The man got even more depressed, went to the river to kill himself, threw himself in the river, but the Buddha, through his power of clairvoyance, came to save the man, and said that Well, yeah, Shariputra hasn't abandoned all of the subtle obscurations to omniscience. I have. Therefore, I see a root of virtue for you to ordain. How? Because in a past life, when you're reborn as a pig or or a fly, something like this. You made circumambulation of a stupa. Remember the story? Yeah, very famous story. So, Shariputra, that was a wrong view, right? Thinking this man doesn't have the root of virtue to ordain. Okay. But Shariputra at that point was an arhat, so no afflictions. So that mind of Shariputra's believing, and this was actually a denial, right? There's something that exists, that root of virtue, and he denied. Okay. So that mind is not an affliction because Shariputra, having been an arhat, has abandoned all afflictions. Yet, that mind, that wrong view, he was turning that man away, right? So it was a little bit, cause harm to the man. Anyway, so yes, I hear you, Mariana, who's saying, not knowing where my cup is, that doesn't really affect my path, right? But if you were, and this is what they say, actually, this is why we need to become enlightened, because even the arhats, even 10th ground bodhisattvas still make mistakes. They're not omniscient, right? So you could, imagine, right? Even the, I don't know how subtle that, or how long ago it was. I mean, Arya bodhisattvas do have some level of clairvoyance necessarily, but you can see even at 10th ground bodhisattva, not yet omniscient, not knowing something, then they're trying to guide a sentient being towards enlightenment. They make a mistake. Anyway, some interesting things. I hope you think so too. Okay, so anyway, this is what we were saying. Count the 5 types of wrong view as 1, add them to the 5 non-views, and the resulting 6 make up the subtle and extensive root delusions. Okay, so yeah, that is the 6 or 10 root delusions. I'll just finish this up. When any of these are generated, you should apply their antidotes. Still, as Aryadeva's 400 verses says, just like the sense faculties in the body, benighted ignorance resides in them all. In other words, benighted ignorance, that is the view grasping onto, holding onto true existence, pervades and acts as the cause of all the other delusions. However, benighted ignorance is difficult to identify, so I'll discuss it below. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, we have a few more. Oh, maybe I wasn't doing a screen share on that last one. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, see? All right, so that was identifying the afflictions. Next, the order in which the afflictions arise. So Dharmakirti says, once there is a self, there's an idea of the another. On behalf of self and other, there's attachment and hostility. All the faults come about in association with these. Okay, so here, it's not just, okay, one could fall into a kind of nihilism, right? Thinking that, self and other don't exist, right? So in general, the self exists. In general, other exists, right? But they don't exist inherently. They don't exist truly like that, right? But it's not just that we believe in the self, the conventionally existent self, but we reify, we exaggerate a mode of existence above and beyond what actually is there, right? So this you have to, add the further qualifications like, true existence. So then, because you have self and other, then attachment and hostility. So what? Why? Those things that you see helping the self, benefiting the self, making the self feel good, then you have attachment towards. Those that you see harming the self, then you have hostility. Then all of the faults come about in association with these. So one is, the other kind of secondary afflictions. You'll have, belligerence, which is, related with anger, and so forth. And then the other fault, these afflictions then impel us to do negative actions, which then ripen as suffering results. Okay. All right. Causes of the afflictions. So there's 6 of these as presented in Arya Asanga's Bodhisattva levels. One is the basis. So the basis is the latent proclivity for afflictions. What does this mean? This is like the, okay, we talked about this before, I think. We have the manifest afflictions, okay? And then we have their seeds, and then we have their imprints. So the seed, I think, is what is being talked about for latent proclivity. Okay, so latent, it means they are not manifest. Okay, so although at a certain time, you might not have anger manifest in your mental continuum, then, well, if you're like myself, then you have still the potential to arise anger in the future. So actually, to gain liberation from samsara, then you need to abandon not only the manifest afflictions, but also their seeds or their latent proclivities. Okay, if you abandon those, they then will be impossible to arise again in one's mental continuum. Okay, so object refers to the appearance of objects conducive to the arising of an affliction. Okay, so yeah, people have their different things that they're into, right? So someone who's I don't know, has a chocolate addiction, right? Then when one sees the chocolate, then one's mouth starts to water. You get attachment coming up. Okay. So, and this, by the way, is why the monasteries typically are outside of the cities. And the monks, for example, they live with other monks, right? Yeah. Social context. Social context refers to the influence of bad friends and foolish people. So what does this mean? So you can imagine, people not sort of holding to this view of the afflictions being the root cause of suffering, and say that, free your mind, like don't oppress yourself. If you want to, whatever, eat chocolate or drink or whatever you want to do, just do it. Be true to yourself, something like this. Mm. Explanation refers to listening to wrong teachings. So this we talked about in terms of the five, views. Habituation refers to the process of becoming accustomed to past afflictions. So yeah, this is what we know from our own experience. I think, right? The more that we do something, then the easier it is to do in the future. So it's very important then to not sort of allow the afflictions to run rampant. Then attention. Attention refers to incorrect attention that projects pleasantness onto what has an unpleasant character, conceives impermanent thing to be permanent, and the like. So these are the four erroneous conceptions that mistakenly consider things that are actually impermanent, painful, impure, and lacking in self to be permanent, pleasant, pure, and possessed of a self. So those are the four distortions with regard to the truth of suffering, which you'll see into text in the texts, right? Yeah. I'm just reminded of a little story. We have time, right? Yeah. Oh, we have plenty of time. So I think some of you have heard of Geshe Jampa Gyatso. He was the Geshe at Instituto Lama Tsongkhapa in Italy, one of the major centers of learning within FPMT. Anyway, there they did, the master's program, basic program, all these kind of study programs. And I think, okay, I'm not sure the details, but I think there was a student who came from England and was studying. This was before Brexit. So he's from England, but then went to Italy to study. But he had a partner or girlfriend, something like this, who was in England, and was always missing him so much, and always writing to say, "Oh, okay, all right." So where was I? Were you? You heard my story? I was talking about Jampa Gyatso, Geshe Jampa Gyatso. No, it was all cut off.
Yeah.
So we'll restart. Restart, no problem.
We heard the beginning that the student came from England and he missed his partner.
No. His partner missed him. His partner missed him. Okay. So the partner. Okay, I don't know if he missed the partner, but the relevant detail was the partner missed him, and therefore was always writing and saying like, "Oh, when are you going to come back to visit? I miss you. I can't live without you." All these kinds of things. Okay, so it was becoming a little bit of an obstacle, right? So this student went to Geshe Jampa Gyatso, explained the situation, and wanted advice. So Geshe Jampa Gyatso said, "Okay, this is what you do. You take some of your poo-poo, okay? Take some of your poo-poo, put it in a little bag, and mail it to her." Yes. I don't know if he did that. I don't know if he did that. I don't know. Okay, so you understand? You understand the big picture, right? The person with the attachment to the partner studying in Italy is only seeing, only looking at the good qualities, right? Projecting only good on the person. So then, as a reminder, oh, sorry, this is just my commentary, but oh, honey, if you want a little, remembrance of me when we're apart, here's a little,
Venerable Nanjang, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I had a kind of technical meltdown here, so I'm logged in again on just my phone. Anyway,
There's been a request.
maybe, yeah, what's up?
There's been a request for you to share your slides this evening after you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do that. Assuming I can, work out these technical bugs. Okay, so we're almost out of time anyway. Sorry about that, but are there any questions?
We've been having discussion, and Anne, do you want to re-ask your question? Shanti's had she's been right on with the answers, so.
No, I'm good.
And there was a question that Sam sent in. I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, so Sam had a question pertaining to how I was speaking last week about my friend in Hawaii who, as a kind of philosophical, wait, so is this better or is sideways better? Is that better?
It's good, yes.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. So my friend back in Hawaii who, as a kind of philosophical conclusion, thought that suicide was the answer to get out of suffering. And we were saying we were discussing whether he had renunciation of samsara and whatnot. But anyway, we had mentioned that the kind of missing link was related to the continuity of consciousness. And so someone was asking then, oh, well, how would you then debate someone about that? And basically, it's very difficult to debate people in general, and then in particular about existence of past and future lives. So I think in his and I can't, of course, open it now. But hold on, let me try to. 1 second, because he had mentioned 2 strategies. Okay. So he says, how would one actually debate this continuity of consciousness with a non-Buddhist? There seems to be 2 main approaches. One, debate based on logic, that each moment of consciousness requires a preceding and succeeding moment of consciousness ad infinitum, or debate based on belief, trusting the words of those with clairvoyance that past and future lives exist. The philosopher friend would likely be able to dismiss point 2 out of hand, suggesting that belief is not enough to establish a sound philosophical view that is agnostic of a belief system. They might also dismiss point 1 through analogical reasoning. One cannot determine the exact beginning and end points of a song, for example, but neither can one say that music produced by an instrument requires a preceding and succeeding moment of music to exist. The song comes together and concludes through cause and conditions and depend on matter to manifest for a discrete period of time. The question could be posed, why would mind or consciousness be different from this? How do one debate this? Okay, so you understood? The two approaches that he refers to are basically, the first one is basically what Dharmakirti mentions in Pramanavartika, and it's the kind of, the reasoning from, any moment of mind requires a preceding moment of mind, because the sort of substantial continuum of a consciousness has to arise from a like cause, right? And so the thought is that matter form cannot give rise to consciousness, and only consciousness can give rise to consciousness. Yeah. Then the next one is, there are people who at least claim through clairvoyance that they see past, future lives and all that. So basically, you just because someone claims they see with clairvoyance, that doesn't have much sort of persuasive weight for you if you haven't had such experiences. It's kind of like, as they say, anecdotal evidence, right? And then the first one, it's a bit. It could be argued it is kind of a circular reasoning. Why does a moment of consciousness need to have a previous moment of consciousness, whereas a previous moment of a song doesn't need a previous moment of a song? So when he says, how would one debate this, then probably, I wouldn't debate it. I wouldn't debate it with this person who is sort of not already open to it, right? But in the kind of larger scheme of things, then there are ways we can sort of investigate the mere materialistic view of the mind, and like psi phenomena, right? Psi phenomena like remote viewing and kind of psychic abilities that, according to kind of the scientific materialist view, are not feasible or plausible. But some of these things have been sort of demonstrated to exist. There's a good book, Extraordinary Knowing, that talks about some of these things, including a very interesting chapter on the work that the CIA did with remote viewing. And stories like, people could, kind of direct their minds to files in a file cabinet, many miles away, and then come to know the contents of those files. So that's one. And then, they also talk about the near-death experiences, and especially people who are experiencing cognitive decline prior to the time of death, then they are able to have a kind of sudden jolt of clarity and lucidity, which, because the brain, or the physical basis of the mind is, declining and degenerating close to death, then, to have this sudden clarity before death, shows that they're, or at least gives pause to consider that there could be, some level of consciousness that is not dependent on the physical brain. And then another thing related to kind of near-death experiences are these people who have kind of outer body experiences, out of body experiences, and yeah, there's a few cases like this. I think it's also described in that book, where someone has gone under surgery, and like the doctor who's doing the surgery takes off his watch and like puts it under the table, and later the doctor can't find his watch, but the patient who had this out of body experience and was sort of describing viewing down while the operation was taking place, saw that the doctor had taken his watch and put it in this in this location. I was able to tell the doctor that. So there's many stories like this that at least give pause to the kind of traditional scientific materialistic view of the mind and brain and so forth. But yeah, it's very difficult to gain certainty about these things. And yeah, if one is already kind of not open, then it's very difficult to debate. But I find in my own kind of life then to look at some of these things that kind of undercut the scientific materialist viewpoint as being helpful, because basically you have two alternatives, right? You have the scientific materialist view, and then a view that the mind can exist separate from matter, the brain, so forth. And then you have to look at both views, see kind of what reasons and evidence there are. And for me, I think I have doubt tending toward the fact. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't realize these things, but I'm still like, I'm not sure, but I think it's like this. Okay. Hello. Have I lost you? Oh no. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, maybe we'll dedicate. So let's dedicate for the benefit of all sentient beings and the teachings of Buddha, in particular for the long lives of our spiritual friends, and for all sentient beings to quickly attain the mind of bodhicitta and enlightenment. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but yeah, next week I'll be back in my normal environment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chung.
Thank you, Bernal Namjo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen and Rose.